We have three new guests, three new guests, and this panel is about rigging.
Yes, I'm quite curious, like I said before, about rigging. I've never heard of it before till today, but I'm quite fascinated by it. I'm very curious about those three guests. So one is BrianTsui. He's from Ivan Vertex, right?
Exactly, it's a 2D artist.
Right, a 2D artist. We've got Yoolie. He's a 3D artist, and we've got Denchi. He's a software engineer, the software engineer from a VTube studio. Those guys are gonna introduce themselves. So that was kind of
Yeah, short
short introduction,
introduction for them.
I think we're just gonna hop over, and they're gonna introduce themselves.
All right, are we on? I think so. Can you see this?
Yes, we do.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, all right, thanks for the introduction. Welcome everyone to the panel on VTuber rigging with Julie, Brian, and me, Denchi. Before they introduce themselves, let me just give a really quick overview who we have here with us. We have, to my left, I think, we have Live2D legend BrianTsui, who has worked with many big names such as VShojo and HoloLive. And some people might not know this, but he was actually the first one to really create any tutorials on Live2D, like what it is, how it works, before there was even an English version, 7 years ago. So personally, I think to a big degree, Live2D is popular at all in the West, thanks to him. And we have Yoolie to my right, who's well known in the VTuber scene for his beautiful and very expressive 3D models. He's made models for many small and huge VTubers like Lumi and Mary, who was actually just on in the last panel. So we have two very skilled modelers here with us today, both in the 2D and the 3D VTuber field. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what they have to say. Oh, and I'm Denchi. I make VTube Studio, which is an app that a lot of 2D VTubers use. And as already announced, this panel is specifically about VTuber rigging or modeling. So we'll mostly be talking about how the two got started, what they're working on, and also how you can get started if you want to get into VTuber modeling or rigging. And with that out of the way, without further ado, welcome Brian, welcome Yoolie. Thank you for being here today. And I think it would be nice to start with a small self-introduction. So let's start with Yoolie. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, firstly, my name is Yoolie, as you stated before, and I basically just make 3D VTuber models. There's not much more to that, really. You've basically explained it all. But yeah, so I make 3D VTuber models. I started not like a couple of years ago, and I've just been going at it ever since, really. Here you can see basically a showreel of my work, right? I make some animations for each character I make just because I like showcasing them. Sometimes they're in an environment. Most of the time they're behind a simple background, and yeah, I just like giving life to the characters and not just having them be stale, So yeah, here we go.
Oh, that's awesome. I saw Pecora there as well, but you didn't make her official model, right?
No. That was just because I'm a huge fan of her. Yeah.
Yeah, she's awesome. Okay, thanks a lot. So Brian, what about you?
So I'm Brian. I'm the director of Iron Vertex, and Iron Vertex is a live 2D guild. What that means? Well, it means that we are a circle of live 2D animators. My team of about 8 riggers make over 100 indie VTubers in a year. We also do enterprise jobs, including Crunchyroll, just announced yesterday. And then there's VSojo, there's HoloLive, AirAsia, Azure Lane, United Girlfriend Lines, and also Porter Robinson. Other than that, we make English, Chinese, and Korean tutorials that are officially endorsed by Live2D. And we also manage a live 2D Discord, community Discord of 20,000 people from all over the world. So yeah, that's a short introduction.
Yeah, and yeah, I just remembered Porter Robinson. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I remember that. That was a crazy project. Okay, I think we also just saw some examples of your work on stream. So I think people have a rough idea now who you are and what you're capable of. But I want to go a little bit more into some questions about you. So before we get to the technical part, I want to know a little bit more about you and how you got started with 2D and 3D rigging. Because as I understand it, both of you got started long before VTubers were a thing. So what got you into 2D and 3D modeling? Maybe, yeah, Yoolie, that's, yeah.
Oh, sure. For sure. Well, it basically just started because I've always loved video games. Like, I mean, who doesn't? But I always thought I was too dumb. Like, I wanted to make video games, right? But I always thought I was too dumb to like program them. And I felt like programming wasn't really a very creative job either. So I was basically trying to find ways to be able to be a part of video games, but also have creativity involved. So I thought character modeling was the perfect mix between art and technicality when it comes to, you know, um, being part of video games and developing them and stuff. Yeah. So that's how I started.
Okay.
For me,
Yeah.
So for me, actually, I'm surprised how similar my story is with Yuli. The difference is that Yuli started learning rigging because decided to, become part of video game. I didn't realize that how hard video game making was, and I actually tried to make one before I had any art or coding training. That was like 7 years ago. And then towards the end of the project that didn't happen, that died out really quickly, is that I tried to, I just came across a video from Live 2D. I'm like, oh, we're developing this new technology that would make 2D images move around like it's animated. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna just take this, give it a try, and to show my team to boost the morale a little bit before it dies out. The team still died, but then it was like 6 years ago. I started, rigging as a hobby, and then afterwards I made some tutorials. I got into some indie games to make their visual novel assets, and then Facebook came out in around 2017, and then some streamers starts calling me for VTuber models.
And I think that also goes already into my second question, which is how did you become interested in VTubers and doing VTuber models specifically? Because I think right now, both of you pretty much exclusively do VTuber models. So how did that happen, Yuli?
Well, basically, with making models for video games, not all characters are created equally. Some are more important and some are just there to give you a fetch quest, right? And you'll never see them again. With VTubers, like every single model means something to someone. It's not just another NPC in another RPG. It's someone's own creation, and it always makes me feel like I'm doing something super worthwhile. And I just love the feeling that every single model I make, somebody's gonna really, really like enjoy it and you know, have just it's their own creation, and I feel like that's so much more fulfilling to me than just making another NPC character number 775.
That's definitely true. That's definitely true. I think for most people, VTubing is something that's really personal. And I mean, a lot of artists design their own models as well. So kind of becoming your own art, becoming your own OC or something. I think that's something that people really love. And that's maybe part of why VTubing has become so popular lately. How about you,
Exactly.
Brian?
So, me with Live 2D, frankly, my interest is with Live 2D is more than VTubing. I know I do a lot of VTubing. Like my main focus is VTubing right now, but I do want to do other forms of live 2D all the time because of all the possibilities out there, including music videos and whatnot. But VTuber rigging does offer a unique experience. Is to me, it's that you get to build a relationship with the VTuber, and there are many talented and very hardworking individuals out there with a very interesting background story. And you get to, as a rigger, you get to become part of the first chapter of their story, and that's something really valuable to me.
Oh yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah, it's just something very personal. And obviously with VTubers, that they have the whole papa mama thing going on, right? So
Yeah,
once you
I was
make
about
once
to
you make
say.
a model, you're part of the family pretty much.
Yeah, it's super
And
cute. I love
sometimes
that.
sometimes that's great. Sometimes, maybe not so great. You don't get to choose your family. That's just how it is. Although in this case,
Yeah,
That sounds really
you
sad.
in
yeah,
this case you
yeah,
do get to choose your family.
that is true.
Well, yeah. Hmm. Okay, so you both do this as a full-time job now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Hmm. When did that happen? Is that something that you decided on from the beginning? Like, oh, I wanna go into this full time. I want to try to make this my full-time job, or is that just something that kind of happened along the way?
In my case, it kind of happened gradually. Like I just kept making models until they were enough to earn a living out of them, right? So I kept working and working, and they kept getting a bit like better quality. So I was able to just earn a living out of them after a while. Really, yeah. It was very gradual. It wasn't like a specific step. Like, oh, I'm going to become a 3D modeler, a VTuber 3D modeler now. No, it took like a couple of years, maybe one or two.
So so it was 1 or 2 years. That's that's not a lot. Okay.
Yeah,
So you just did it as a hobby, and then eventually became profitable enough that you said, oh, I can do this full time. I can be self-employed with this.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Brian, how was it for you?
In my case, it's a more embarrassing story. I'm
Oh,
basically forced
spicy.
into doing a full-time job. So in 2019, I finished my my computer science degree, and I got into a junior software engineer job at a tech startup. But then COVID, so I had no choice but to switch my side gig up as my main gig. And but although there's not a choice for me, I don't regret after all that happens. And so much happened in the community. I made so many friends and families, and I think I don't regret getting forced into this option.
Okay. So that's interesting. So for the both of you, it kind of happened, kind of accidentally. I actually was like that for me as well. I mean, when I got started with VTube Studio, it was just a small kind of side project that I did. Um, I was working full time at a big software company, and eventually it just kind of became bigger. More people started using it, and became viable as a full time job. And I went for it, and I don't regret it. Actually, my last official workday was last Friday. Huh. It's interesting. Okay,
Congratulations.
so yeah, well,
Congratulations.
thanks. But actually, it was, well, to be completely truthful, it was 2 months before that, because I saved up my vacation time to
Oh,
to basically leave 2 months early, because I had 3 months, what's it called, notice period.
Hmm.
Uh, so what is your typical workday like as a rigger? How does that work?
well, I wake up, I work, I eat, I go to sleep, and rinse and repeat. I guess. I mean, it's not really that much more different. I don't really do much else other than wake up, work, eat, sleep. In a way, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, well, maybe that's something that only our German audience will understand. But in German, we call self-employed, that's called selbstständig. And it's called that because you're working selbst, which means by yourself, and ständig, which means always.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that's
nice.
exactly
I
how
like
it
the
is.
spirit of that.
At all
Yeah,
times.
that's
It
just how it
explains
is.
it all by itself.
Yes.
Hmm.
You're
Working by yourself, and you're working all the time. No
Literally,
weekends,
basically.
no time off. That's just how it is.
Yeah. Quite
So
literally.
I think you have both worked with big companies, so Whole Life, VShojo, and how's that like? Because I know you also work with smaller indie creators. What's the difference, and which one is easier?
Brian, you go first for this one.
So yeah, I do work for Hololive and VTuber. So VTuber and Hololive have very different systems in terms of their model production process. Hololive has a system in place that I have to fit into. I can't speak too much about the details because they are next door, and we there's NDA and stuff. But I can give a general impression from a rigger's perspective. If you do get to become Hololive rigger, what is it like? Relatively speaking, there is well, if you're ready to take a Hololive job, I would say you should be prepared that there's no room for error. There's stress about every tiny mechanic that you build to be absolutely robust. You cannot take a bet on things that they would work in theory, and not with the mindset that, oh, if they break on stream, then I'll fix it afterwards. And there's probably less room for creativity and experimental things because you just have to, like, whatever you do to it, you should know the potential edge cases, and make sure that they don't happen, because I think you should have that responsible mindset before you hop in. um, and that goes the same for most other enterprise comms, for say like Azure Lane, Paul Robinson, and also like for Crunchyroll. I would apply the same mindset. Now for like Visojo and like AirAsia, um, they leave the production part to the talents and us, Iron Vertex, to work directly. So it's pretty much same as working for indies. And not that we would, because we not that because of indie that we would slack in QA, or we would relax about making a mistake that would show on stream. In these jobs, we definitely take a different balance point between impact and risk management. So I don't think we ever had models broken on stream, but we only have some like barely noticeable edge case errors, which can be resolved or minimized by sacrificing some of the other qualities, like maybe lesser movement range or maybe less physics in order to avoid those edge cases. It's always, because Live is always pushing the boundaries, and it gets into danger zone. So but we always play the game of how risky it is and whether it's worth taking a risk or not. So yeah,
Yeah, and
that's overall.
I think you told me that a while ago, but you also try to kind of add one new feature to each new model that you make, like one new what's it called? Innovative, I guess, feature. Experimental. Yeah.
Innovative. Yeah, I do try to slip in when I can. When I can, I do. But I usually, like, those I don't plan at the beginning. It's usually halfway through building most of the structure that I know its capacity. And then I would get maybe an inspiration of, maybe I can try this new feature. Because I tried feature A last time, I tried features B last time, and A plus B equals the C one. So I know that C in theory can work. So there's some evolution happening over time. But personally, I play pretty safe with new stuff.
Yeah, you got to be careful because you don't want to like break something on the debut stream. That's not good, especially if it's a big company. They might not take that very kindly.
Even
Although,
for indies, I
yeah,
wouldn't
sure,
casually just
sure, yeah.
let it break.
Yeah, of course, you have to treat everybody with the same kind of respect. You can't just say, "Oh, this is just a small creator. I can kind of slack off on their model." You can't do that, obviously. But yeah, I've also seen like models from big companies kind of being janky on their first stream. So it happens. It happens. Not yours specifically, but we've all We've all seen that. So Yoolie, what about you? What do you think it's like working with big companies versus indies?
It's basically exactly the same as Brian said. It's usually not too different because you're usually just with one person. You're talking to a manager, or in the case of indies, you're talking to the actual person that's going to use it. So it's not usually that different, but yeah, they're definitely much more restrictive in both with NDAs, like you won't be able to show your things until they say so, or very specific about what they want, right? I'm very specific that everything is working 100% exactly how they want. But for the most part, it's not really that different. Like you're still working in the same programs, you're still like doing the same model, usually in a similar style than what you usually do. So I have to agree with Brian. It's different, but at the same time, it's very similar. Like
Hmm.
they're both enjoyable,
Yeah.
but yeah. But I prefer
By
indies
the way,
because I can like uh as Brian said, try out new things a little bit more without it being too scary, right?
yeah, that's true. And I think if you try out something like really experimental, some indie might say, "Oh yeah, that's cool. I want that in my model." But the company
Yeah,
might
yeah,
say, "Oh well, take that off. We don't want that. We
yeah, yeah,
didn't
yeah.
ask for that." Yeah, that's
Exactly,
just how it
exactly.
is, I guess.
We
Yeah.
didn't ask
Also,
for
by the
that.
way, by the way, talking about debuts, this is the first time you're using your new model, right? Is this
Yeah,
technically your debut? Oh wow,
basically, yeah.
well,
Technically, it is my debut.
Do
It's
you
my
want to do
first
a
time on stream.
slideshow?
Sure.
well,
No, I'm fine.
yeah.
My
Where's
favorite
your where's your
animes are.
where's your PowerPoint? Yeah, we're all
Yeah,
waiting.
where's my PowerPoint? Where's the jank? I mean, well, I can make
Where's
it
the
janky if you want.
Yeah,
But yeah,
we
where's
can
my?
get jank. We can get jank in here if we want to.
Yeah, very easily. But yeah, basically, it is my debut in a way. It's my first time on stream. It's my first time really talking. So I'm kind of nervous, but I'm having fun.
Hmm. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I think I want to get a little bit more into the technical questions now because I think we probably have a whole bunch of aspiring riggers watching who want to know how they can learn to do the kind of stuff that you do. So let's get started with that. Starting with what kind of software do you use to create your models? And is that kind of software expensive or is that something you can get for free? Are there alternatives or something like that?
Sure. Well, I primarily use Blender, which is completely free, like forever for everyone. And I of course use other software like Clip Studio Paint and ZBrush, but that's mostly because I'm more comfortable with them. Oh God, what is happening? Yeah, I'm more comfortable with them, but you don't really need them to make models. You can do everything in Blender if you want. Like you can model it, you can sculpt, you can texture, you can rig it, everything just in Blender. So if you decide to use other software such as ZBrush or Clip Studio or Substance Painter, like I use, it's just to like make it a bit easier because maybe you don't like how texturing in Blender works and stuff. And for those, you usually do have a fee, but most of them have either a free trial version or a free version that has limited features. So if you ever want to give them a try, right, you're more than free to do so. But yeah, I would highly suggest Blender because it's not only free, but it's amazing, and it's what I primarily use. Yeah,
Yeah, Blender is really good. And
it's amazing.
I haven't told you this, but I'm actually somewhat of a Blender pro myself.
Oh,
I've made a donut.
you made the Blender donut. I everybody I talk to that's touched Blender, they've made the donut tutorial, right?
The
But I've never
the
done
the
the donut
donut?
tutorial.
What? Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
sorry. Okay, sorry. We gotta take away your 3D credentials. That's
No.
unacceptable. If you haven't done the donuts, that means that I'm technically a better 3D rigger than you are.
That is absolutely true.
Yo,
Even though you
any
don't rig the
donut
donut.
VTuber out there? Donut
Yeah.
VTuber, you can commission Denchi for one.
And get this. I also did the towel.
The
Towel.
what?
Towel?
You
There's a
don't know?
towel?
Oh, that's I think the second tutorial from the same guy.
Oh yeah. No, I mean I haven't even done the first one. Like,
Okay. So you have a long way to go, I guess.
yeah, I haven't. Yeah, I need to get to your level.
Yeah. I'll just hit me up after this, and I'll send you the link. Then
Yeah,
maybe.
for sure. Thanks.
So
Definitely.
how about you? How about you, Brian? What's it like with Live 2D? Is it expensive?
So live duty as a full-time job, I would say you need at least Photoshop. Otherwise, for a lower price option, there's Clip Studio. Um, Technically, you don't have to draw, but you need those software to work with the artist too, in order to check out the material or do some small patching. If you're getting Photoshop, you might as well get CC because assuming you're freelancing, you got to make videos all the time, and you might as well get After Effects as well. So Live2D Cubism has a free version. It's for permanently free, but it has some limitations on the functionality. You can take on commissions with just a free one, but I think the pro version subscription is also very affordable. So definitely go pro soon as you get the first com. And then there's VTube Studio. You need to get that to test your model. Otherwise, you also need FaceRig or the newer FaceRig, which is Animates. And then also do get Google Cloud with some extra storage because you probably need to keep a lot of files around. One project can go up to 100 to 200 megabytes or even bigger than that. So I think overall it's relatively cheap comparing to many other digital creative careers. Yeah, I get 3D, like you explained 3D can be Blender for free, but I got a question for Yoolie. For if
Mhm.
there's like any professional VTuber 3D rigging riggers, do you like is there any like paid tools that would make it more effective or efficient would you recommend?
Paid tools, not really. Like with 3D models, what you're giving out is the 3D model itself, right? And whether you use Maya, whether you use Blender, whether you use whatever, it's gonna export the exact same way. So in my opinion, what you should use whatever is most useful to you, because as long as you have the ability to export it, and you can like uh give permission to use it commercially, then it doesn't really matter what you use. Really, whatever you're
What
most
about
comfortable
those?
with.
Is there any like add-ons or plugin that is
Yeah,
paid
I was
or
yeah, exactly. I was about to say that. So I use a bunch of add-ons that make my life easier. Like,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't use it anymore, but I used to use specifically for rigging an add-on called Auto Rig Pro, which kind of like makes a skeleton for you already, and you can like place the bones easier that way. So that
Mhm.
costs money, but is it necessary? Not really. It's not really necessary to do it,
Okay,
but it might,
okay.
yeah, it might help with time, but it's definitely not necessary. As long as you give out the FBX file and the VRM file, like it doesn't matter what you did it with, really. At least at least in 3D stuff.
I think that's a really big difference between also 2D and 3D currently, at least, is that there are no real alternatives for 2D VTubers. There's just live 2D. There's no competitor. I don't know, maybe in the future, but right now there's nothing else that you can really use. At least
True.
nothing that comes close to the kind of quality that you can get with live 2D.
Mhm.
So when you start with a model, how long does it take you to like finish a model from start to finish? Meaning the moment you get contacted by the client to the moment where you send off the model to the client.
Hmm. But in my case, it usually just depends on the complexity of it, because some have a lot of clothes, some are basically, naked, almost, or
What?
have really, you know, I'm saying almost, okay? They usually have clothes, but they're usually like really easy or skin tight. Those are usually really easy clothes to do. Or, they have short hair, or, not complex stuff. So those would usually take around 2 weeks on the low end. But the more complex ones with like a lot of stuff going on, they could take a month or two, really. So it really depends on the complexity, and what it needs,
Hmm.
what how many bones it needs, how many like blend shapes it needs as well. Just it really depends. But
Okay. How about live?
anywhere between 2 weeks and 2 months. Yeah. Sorry.
How about live 2D?
Um, Typically, for me, I would spend 6 to 8 full days for the first pass. That includes the rigging animation and physics. First pass because I need another maybe 2 to 6 half days for adjustment. So there might be some back and forth with the VTuber client to do some adjustment, work in either the PSD or the rig or the animation. For IV in Iron Vertex, because we have a project manager to handle the communication, to handle DevOps, to handle QA and payments and bookkeeping and coordination, that's how me and my team can save a lot of time. So if you're on your own, you probably need more than that.
Okay. It's interesting. So I think there are a lot of, differences also between Live 2D and 3D. So I want to get a little bit into the details of how modeling works. Starting with 3D, starting with Yoolie, how does it work? Like with modeling, do you create the models from scratch, or do you use like a base model and work off of that and add details to that?
Yeah.
Just what's the process? What do you get from your clients, and how do you start?
Okay. So that's a big of a doozy. So let me start with if I start from scratch or not. I personally do, because I prefer. I mean, the funnest part of modeling for me is making the body and the face. So it would kind of like delete the fun part about modeling to me. So yeah, I do start from scratch, mostly for preference and mostly because I feel like that gives a better quality model in the end. But there are some people that start from a base, and usually you need to state that you start from a base, because sometimes you don't own it, right? But there's no shame in starting with a base or anything, as long as you make it clear that base wasn't yours, you know. But I
Yeah, I
personally,
would. So
yeah,
I would totally expect somebody to start from a base. Like if I want a specific body model, then I would expect my rigger to already have that pre-made kind of.
yeah, in a way, yeah. But because I accept basically all types of bodies, wide, thin, slim. It doesn't really matter. I prefer starting from scratch, because that way I can like make it so it's much more alike. That like I can make it so it's more like the reference than if I would have a base. Plus, it's very fun. So yeah, everybody has a different process. When you start modeling and stuff, you might start box modeling. You might start sculpting. There's different ways that you can go about it, right? And what I personally do is I start in ZBrush, and I sculpt my characters first, right? Just very not lazily, but not clean. It doesn't need to be a clean shape. But then I go to Blender, and I do something that is called retopologizing, which is a word and a half. But basically, it
Hmm.
means just cleaning up the vertices, and cleaning up the entire topology, basically the polygons and stuff, making it nicer to work with. And after that, I would just start doing the clothes and the hair just in Blender, by box modeling and what people call edge modeling. And yeah, just continue on from there, basically. Uh, I tend to have the reference that people give me for the character, either in the scene or behind it, so I can kind of, and this is going to sound bad, but it's a valid method in 3D. I can kind of trace over it, so I can make it so it's as close as possible to the 2D reference as possible, right?
Excuse me,
Sometimes
tracing.
yeah,
Oh
but it's in
no.
3D.
No.
Oh
It's in
no. He
3D, I
said he
swear.
said he said the bad word. He said the bad word.
No,
Sassy.
Cancel him.
no. No, and
I
3D
have
is
a
No,
for
I
follow-up
mean,
animation,
question for you.
yeah, obviously. I mean, if you have a 2D model, if you have a 2D, what's it called, a 2D reference, and you
Mhm.
want to get that into 3D, then obviously that's what that's what you would do. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could eyeball it as much as you want, but
Yeah,
it's just easier to put it behind
yeah.
and just
N-
trace over it in a
I
way.
think there's another interesting thing when we're talking about 2D and 3D, because as I think everybody knows, there are some things in anime art that don't really have a representation in the real world, in the 3D world. So, like for example, how an anime mouth works. It
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't work. It just doesn't work the same in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that? Are there any problems when bringing 2D art into 3D? And are there any tricks that you have to use for that?
Well, not as many as one might think. Like once you know the rules, and well, I put rules in quotation marks because they're more like guidelines. Like once you know the guidelines, it's not really that confusing. But like for example, as you mentioned with mouths, you kind of have to indent them a bit on the sides to get like a slight anime mouth, because if you don't indent them, they'll look like they're protruding a bit too much. Or for example, with the eyes, instead of a sphere like I have with like my characters, they're not a sphere. It's mostly like an empty socket for the sclera.
Oh,
So yeah, so basically the eyes are convex. I think that's the word. Uh, the sclera is convex, and the eye itself, the iris, is basically, you know, how do you say, a circle, basically, that you put on front of it, and you can make it a sphere, but that doesn't it doesn't let you have that iconic anime eye where they can be any sort of shape or size. And small tricks like that make it possible to make anime not look too
hmm.
weird, right?
Yeah.
Because you'd be actually surprised how consistent anime is. Even like TV anime, they make sure to make it like very very consistent and based in reality. So when a character moves to the left or right, it's not completely like, it makes sense. It makes sense realistically. So
Hmm.
once you have those tiny tricks down, eh, basically you don't. There's not many other things that you need to worry about. Anyway.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know anything about that world. I do know a little bit about Live 2D though, and obviously you're working with 2D art there. But I think a lot of people who might just be starting out with Live 2D, or might not know about it at all, don't understand how it works. So Live 2D takes 2D images drawn by artists and kind of transforms them into 3D looking models. So how does that work, Brian? How does it work exactly? What are the steps that you need to take from starting with an image to having the finished model?
So yeah, Live 2D is not actually a 3D dimensional model, and that's a lot of commissions inquiries come in. They have a misunderstanding that they expect a 3D object to be important at other applications as well. Live 2D does not exist 3D right now. So if you look at Denchi and me right now, if we can't turn around because the backside of things don't exist, and we can't make it exist unless someone draws it. However, Live 2D takes only one image, which is basically one image is one side of a character. And we coordinate many layers of the 2D meshes to manipulate a pseudo 3D structure. And Live 2D doesn't have to be 3D-ish. There's a lot of value even if we just keep it 2D. So don't be constrained by, oh, Live 2D has to look 3D. No, Live 2D can also be purely 2D too. Uh, but go back to the question of from start to finish, what are the steps? So, assuming you are not the person drawing it, which Ivy, we usually don't draw our models. We have a few cases we do, but Bunny can get out of the way. Um, and sometimes we do draw, but most of the time we don't draw. And we start with taking in a PSD provided by our client's artist, which means that when the drawing is finished, usually it's not ready to directly start doing Live 2D, and we need a process to do the PSD cutting. That could be either done by the artist or rigger. If they know how, the rigger knows how to draw or the artist know how to cut, that'll be perfect. After the PSD is ready, we import into Live 2D, and then the routine things, the parameters, the layers, the deformers, and then we give it the movement range. We create the physics mechanics, we script the animations, we arrange the texture map, and then we export it. We export the model out, called runtime file, and we take it to QA tests and then something will break, and we come back to update the art, the rig, the physics, animation, and then we re-export again, deliver to the client, and do DevOps things, and then we will do adjustments, and that's usually how the process is like.
Yeah, that's a lot of steps. And then, of course, I mean, obviously, over the lifetime of the VTuber, there's a lot of stuff you need to do, like support, and something breaks with the model, or they don't understand how to use the software. That's probably also something that's a very significant part of the workload, I would imagine.
That is a lot of VTubers before before they start streaming with the live video model, they imagine what they need, but then after they start using it in their actual streams and with their content, what they imagine would be useful may not end up be usable or useful at all, and you may have to do adjustment accordingly. So make things that are practical to their need instead of making that as hard to use that pointless. We could give them
Yeah.
all the flexibilities with a bunch of hotkeys, but it wouldn't make sense if if they cannot use all of them. Then we have to combine some of the features in order to make it a good bundle for each VTuber to use. Some VTubers prefer to have more flexibility. Some VTubers prefer to have simpler mechanics for them to use because they're focusing on the content, the performance. So yeah, you have to tune to their needs.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely something that you need to keep in mind if you want to do this as a job or full time, or even just, as a hobby, make a little bit of money with it. You'll definitely have to, even after you finish the model, you'll have to talk to your clients. You'll have to help them out if they have issues. You'll have to do support. I mean, money wise, of course, you can also charge for that, but that's definitely something that you should be doing as a modeler. There has to be some kind of support for your models. And a lot of people, I feel like, forget that or don't do that. And that's pretty unfortunate because often VTubers end up, kind of with a model that they're not sure how they could use it, how it works, stuff like that. Right. So, yeah, I guess we have 10 minutes, so time went by really fast. Let me ask you
I told you
one
we
last
overrun this.
thing. Yeah. Let me ask you one last thing here in the technical questions part. What to you is the most fun about creating VTuber models? Yoolie.
Yeah, sure. To me, it's usually giving out the model, like just seeing even if it's just through text, just seeing the excitement somebody gets when they get the model is just it's just so nice to me every time. I want to get it done, uh, mostly because I just want to see their reaction, like, oh my god, it's amazing, whatever. That's definitely the best part. But of the process itself, I would have to say making the face. I really like making the face of the characters. Just, I don't know. It's super satisfying to me to get it like right or just pretty. I don't know why. That's my favorite part. Yeah, but
How about you, Brian?
both of those.
I would say fun part. There are two major things. One is that working with a lot of great artists. These are great artists that everyone knows, and even for me when I was starting off, I already was working with great artists. Like I already get the chance to work on like Rossary's art, and I've been a fan of Rossary way before I started Live 2D, and so like suddenly I started taking commissions. Suddenly, I get to make this art move. That's a great, like a great feeling for me. And when Rosary says he also likes what she sees, and that's also, the mature feeling that's one of a kind experience. The other thing is the interaction with VTuber after the debut because we become friends, have a family feeling, and yeah, and that is a way to develop your a relationship with the VTuber because like I am a VTuber fan too. I'm a fan of follower of many VTubers, but then
Yeah.
you get to have build a special relationship with them, and that's unique. So I think that's a fun part of it.
I'm just glad
Yeah.
that none of you said my favorite part is the paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know enough to not say that on stream.
Yeah. It's actually opening PayPal every single time gives me so much euphoria. No. But I have to agree with Brian a lot. It's actually, becoming friends with the VTubers or even the artists that made the VTuber, reference. In my case, it's like also a huge perk in my opinion. It's amazing, and sometimes they call you Papa, and you're like, oh, oh God, it's so cute.
Definitely, yeah, yeah.
Okay, well then, for the remaining time, I guess let's talk a little bit about VTubing in general and how people can get started with VTuber modeling. So, if people want to get started as VTubers, how would they do it? They either have to make the model themselves or commission somebody. And I'm guessing that people probably right now can't commission you because your commissions are full for the next, I don't know, fucking 20 years. But where would they go? And keep it really short because you don't have a lot of time. But where would people go if they're looking for 2D or 3D commissions?
When it comes to 3D, there's not that many modelers, but I would say your best bet is probably Twitter. Just trying to find artists and trying maybe hashtags. I'm not entirely sure, but all I know is that a lot of people, when they speak about 3D models, especially the ones done from scratch, there's really not that many people that make them. So your best bet is basically Twitter, in my opinion. Just try and scour Twitter to see who's doing things and DM those people, probably, if they're open.
Oh wow. Okay. How about Live
Yeah.
2D?
So Live 2D has a very mature and relatively safe place to get your Live 2D model, which is our Discord, our community Discord, with a lot of Live 2D riggers and artists already in there to take commissions. You can also post, say, like, I want to get a Live 2D model like this one, or budget of this one, and other like requirements, and then people will DM you and if they're interested. So the Discord would be discord.gg/live2d. Another way to browse the market is to go on vtuber.gg, which is basically a web app that would mirror the marketplace. You can check out what models are, what freelance riggers are offering right there.
Wow. That's very mature. And with 3D models, you're just
We're
like
working on something.
it's the Wild West basically at the moment.
I think a lot of people
what's
know
a
the big names of 3D modeling, but Live 2D, there's really a wide range of options out there. So yeah, even Fiverr is an option. I know people will get Live 2D models from Fiverr too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would not suggest getting 3D models from Fiverr. While you might be able to get some good ones, most of the time it's a hit or miss. It's like a 50-50 chance depending on who you ask, or so it's really the Wild West.
You have to be so careful with Fiverr. And I'm not saying that literally all of them are scammers, but you have to be really careful because every time I put in Live 2D in Fiverr, I see so many models like Brian's models. I also see my models from time to time there. Just put up there saying, "Oh, look, I can make this kind of model," and you just know that they're scammers. So there are some artists on there who are legit, but you got to be really careful. Always check if they have a Twitter, and I don't know. I would personally stay away from it.
You can check with the community Discord because we have a blacklist of scammers.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
So, one more question there. Do you watch your own VTubers?
Yes. Every single time I have a chance to put it in the background while I work. Absolutely, all of them.
But how do you choose though? Because there are so many and you can't watch them all.
Whoever is live at one point, if they're both live at the same time, it's kind of like choosing between your own kids, isn't it? It's kind of impossible.
But everybody has their favorite kid. They won't say it, but you just know that.
Denchi?
Well, I won't say it.
We don't talk about this.
No, okay.
We don't talk about this.
You're putting
let's not go into that maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's say we have people here watching who want to get started with VTuber rigging. They might be kind of wondering how to get started. Now, back when you started working on 2D or 3D things, it might have been different, but how is it today? Where should people go if they want to get started with rigging, like from scratch, if they know nothing?
When it comes to me, just the same as before. There's not really been many new tutorials about it. 3D modeling has been, you know, it's very old at this point. Like it's kind of like 30 years old or more. I don't even sure. I'm not even sure. But 3D modeling is very old. So basically, all the tutorials that you've seen now are basically the same as they have always been. So what I recommend is just downloading Blender, figuring out the interface by watching Blender's own, tutorials that they have, and starting off with making really, really simple models like a table or a chair. I know they're not really exciting, but it really helps you learn all the tools that you need, because there's a lot of tools in Blender specifically, and Maya, and anything you use to get started. So that's how I would suggest to get started, just by doing really, really
Okay.
simple things and trying to, reference yourself.
How about Live 2D, Brian?
I would say download Cubism, download a sample model, and then take things apart to get a feeling of what the abstract is. And then you want to join the Live 2D community Discord. But before you ask people questions, you want to watch some IV tutorials because it gives you a common knowledge, and you don't want to be the one asking the same question everyone asks. So do watching tutorials, but once you're ready, go to Discord. The VC, a lot of people are streaming their work all day, so you can look at how they work and you ask questions about that and technical side as well. Yeah.
And I mean, especially with Live 2D, I mean, you made a couple of really nice tutorials. They're really good. I got started with Live 2D modeling with those as well, so I can personally recommend them as well. Right. And then, of course, as a rigger, you need to build your portfolio, and you need to get noticed somehow, on Twitter or TikTok. Which platforms would you recommend people to go nowadays to get noticed or to build your portfolio?
When it comes to 3D, ArtStation is the way to go. Like if you have your, all the models that you have, whether you're a VTuber or, VTuber modeler or not, just a 3D modeler, most 3D modelers have their own portfolio in ArtStation. But apart from that, I only use ArtStation and Twitter. Apart from that, like I haven't used anything else. I don't have a TikTok. I don't have a Facebook or anything. So really, you could use whatever you want, but I would vouch for a portfolio ArtStation, and just to show a bigger audience, maybe Twitter, definitely.
Yeah. I saw that ArtStation for 3D is really popular. And for 2D, what would you say, Brian? Just really quick.
I tried a few of them. YouTube is a bit hard to get the right client base. You want to go for Twitter and maybe TikTok. I haven't tried TikTok yet, but I've seen people work on TikTok a little bit. So I would say Twitter is the main platform for you to make your presence.
Yeah. I would also definitely say Twitter. But I recently saw that VTube Studio has like 10 million posts or 10 million likes for VTube Studio, which is crazy. I didn't expect that. I think it's pretty big. I mean, I can't make an account there because I'm not a Zoomer. I'm not allowed on there. But if you are, then definitely give TikTok a try as well, because I think that's definitely where you can get a lot of eyeballs on your work. And with that, we are also over time. So thanks again to the both of you. And thanks for the DigiKomi stuff for having us. And maybe we'll meet again someday. Maybe real quick, where can people find you?
Me on Twitter at Yoolies. So that's my name with an S at the end. And at my website at yoolie.card with .co. Yeah, there's my name. There it is. So yeah,
there it is.
Just on Twitter and my website, but mostly Twitter. I'm mostly on Twitter.
And Brian?
For me, I don't remember my handle name for sure, but click on ironvertex.com. You'll probably find me there. I think it's BrianTsui with 2 eyes in the end.
Yeah, it's two eyes. It's 2 eyes.
Because one eye is taken, so unfortunately, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
same
and
with
I'm
me.
Denchi. You can find me on Twitter, twitter.com/DenchiSoft. All right, well then, thanks, and let's get out of
Okay.
here because I think the next
Thank
panel
you.
is going to start in a
We
moment.
gotta go.
Thank you so
Bye
much,
bye.
honestly.
Thanks
It
for
was a pleasure.
listening.
Thank you. Whee!
Bye.
Hello there, welcome back. That was interesting. That was very, very, very fascinating hearing about those guys. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much.